And so very glad to have you with us. This is a TriCast on Operation Eagle's Wings, the Jesus Network, and actually we're broadcasting two different locations on the Jesus Network. We're broadcasting on our radio stream online on TJN, and we are also broadcasting on our webcast. And you can see our webcast if you go to www.thejesusnetwork.info. And what we're doing tonight is it's an outreach from Ephesian Vision Ministries called The Promise Made. And Bob Schuster is in the studio with us, and he's going to have some advice for us on how to improve our lives and how to improve our finances and business. So, Bob, glad to have you with us in the studios today.
Well, good evening, David. David is the creator of EVM, and I want to welcome you to A Promise Made. I will be your gracious host. And hopefully, and I know when you call in, and Dave will be giving you that information in a couple of seconds, on how to call in tonight with any questions if you're in business or thinking about getting into business, or if your personal life seems to be stuck on hold or park. Your business, you think that somebody has got their foot on the parking brake, and you're wondering how to get from where you are to where you really want to go. So we're going to be open to questions, and we're going to be here every Wednesday evening at the same time, which is 7 o'clock Pacific time. We're streaming live from Bend, Oregon. So I'm going to turn back to Dave, and he's going to give you the phone numbers and the Skype.
And thank you very much. This is new, first time we've done this, and we are very excited about it. The ways that you can call in, two ways to call in. You can call in a landline phone, which is 541-282-323.
323.
How about that again? How about 323-2882? 541-323-2882 is the number to call. Again, that's 541-323-2882. And you can also call it on a Skype account, and the Skype name is Promise Made. And we have the Skype computer ready to go, and looking forward to getting your calls here on a Promise Made. So, Bob.
Thank you, Dave. And we do hope that you call in. Like Dave said, this is a try, and we're going to try real hard to answer your questions. And what I would like to first of all refer to is John 10:10 is where I got the message that I should be getting to people with Jesus' message, which was he came not only to give us life, but so that we may find it in more abundance. And if we look at history, if we look at today, if we are given the promise to live life in more abundance, then why are so many people struggling? I know here in the United States, here in Bend, Oregon, a large percentage of the population is struggling. I know in my 72 years I've been through a lot of trials and tribulations, and you think, well, this guy is just a smart aleck. He's going to be sitting there telling us exactly what to do because he's rich and he's never had a problem. Let me assure you, in my 72 years, I have probably been everywhere you've been or are going to be. I've experienced most everything that you could experience financially, personally. I've been up. I've had money. I've had no money. I've had money. I've had no money. And I think I have been in a position of having no money a whole lot more often than I've had money. And I'm finding that that is the case with a lot of people right now in the United States. And so if you're experiencing those kind of problems, please give us a call, because we do have some answers. I've been in business for 45 years. I've been coaching individuals, companies, small towns, cities, nonprofit, civic organizations. You name it, I've been there as a coach. And I hope that I can help you now. In fact, I know I can. So over the next weeks and months and years, we're going to be getting together, and we're going to be answering your questions.
Now, if you happen to miss the broadcast or the webcast, you can also watch it on demand on our website. We'll also have a YouTube link, and we'll put this up on YouTube as well. So if you miss the advice that Bob gives during this Wednesday night get-together, that you can tune in later and watch it on demand.
Dave, would you give them those phone numbers again, how they can call in?
Sure. The phone number is 541. Now, this is a landline phone number, and this is Pacific Coast in the United States. So you have to use the country code if you're calling from out of the nation. So the landline number is 541-323-2882. 541 is the area code, 323-2882, or Skype name Promise Made. Now, tonight's Skype name will be Promise Made, but next week it will be A Promise Made. All right? So tonight it's Promise Made. We're logged in if you want to call in on Skype right now. Anywhere in the world, if you have a Skype account, you know that's free of charge. But again, if you're here in the Pacific Northwest and you want to call a regular phone line, you can call area code 541-323-2882. We do want to mention that if you call in, please listen to the phone call as we talk to you. If you listen online, that's about 30 seconds delayed, and it's going to cause some issues there. So when you call in, listen online or listen on the phone, and the information will be fed back to you over the telephone.
Thank you, Dave. You know, as I'm preparing, and I guess I've been preparing all my life, and people will ask, and I think we get set up early in life not to really succeed. Now, nobody intended their advice to be harmful. And I don't know who does the statistics. Psychologists, psychiatrists, social work, I don't know. But they come up with statistics. And by the time a person reaches the age of 5 or 6, most people have a good idea who they are based on who their parents said they were. Mm-hmm. Their ministers, their pastors, their siblings, their aunts, uncles, the news. Dave, you've experienced that.
Yeah, we have. Now, when you say that, I'm wondering if parents with good intentions are trying to not allow their children to be harmed or feel bad by not allowing them to experience things, and so they give them no, and they hear no a lot when they're growing up.
In fact, Dave, there's a statistic that says by the time a child reaches the age of 18, they have heard the word no or something similar to that 180,000 times.
That's a lot of times.
Yeah, by the time they're 18. And the same study said that a child by the time they're 18 are lucky to have heard, hey, you're really the greatest, attaboy, at the most 50 times, if at all. And many go through those first 18 years without hearing, hey, you're fantastic. They don't hear it at all.
Sometimes they call that, in some countries, they call that the tall poppy syndrome. I know in some countries overseas, it's not culturally acceptable to elevate yourself above everybody else because they think you're bragging or boastful. And so the tall poppy syndrome is where they cut off the tall poppy and make everyone the same. The problem with that is you tend to dumb down the ability of people to really excel and overall for that culture to thrive, because you are going to have some people that are extremely gifted in business and finance and so on and so forth. And if you constantly cut them down, they're never going to rise to the potential that God put in their lives. And in the end result, we all suffer.
Dave, I love that analogy. It's the first time I've heard it, and I really like that, because as we grow, I know I experienced it, as we grow, people are always asking, especially as you get in later years in high school, or you go to college, they say, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? Or what are you studying? What are you going to major in? Everybody wants to know where you're going to go. And so you get it in your head that you should know by the time you're 18 what you want to be, or by the time you're 21 and graduate from college. If you're like me, God didn't put it on my head until I was 68. Now, I knew all along what my passion was, and if you go where most of us haven't gone, and that's to Mark 25:14. Not Mark, Matthew. And you go to Matthew 25:14. It talks about talents. Now, most of us get caught up in skills. Well, we're a good carpenter, or we learn how to play the piano. We're good with a rifle. We pick up some skills, but we don't take time to really concentrate on what is the real talent that God placed on and in our... Dave is on the phone, so I'm going to have to pause.
Okay, how about, can we put you on the air? Stand by.
Well, it sounds like somebody's going to be put on the air. We'll see what our caller has. Caller,
go ahead.
This is
Hi,
Bob.
this is Jeannie.
Jeannie.
And I was wondering, Bob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I was wondering if you could tell new business owners what you would deem possibly the first 3 most important steps to laying a good foundation would be.
The 3 most important steps to...
Laying a good foundation for a new business owner.
Oh, laying a good foundation for a business. Very good question. Thank you for calling. Now, the most important thing I lacked most of my business life, and I think most people do. The first thing that you need to do if you're serious, and let me ask the question, is the caller still on the line? No?
Yes.
Oh, caller,
Yes.
you're still there. Okay, thank you.
Caller, is this going to be something that you're thinking about doing full-time or part-time?
Part-time.
Part-time. So something to supplement your income.
Correct.
Okay. Now, whether it's full-time or part-time, the advice holds on this first step. First step is when you decide to do something, be sure you have a coach, a consultant, a counselor, someone that has, especially if they've been in the same business that you're thinking about, especially if they've had that experience, so they can guide you. It's like in the Old West, and only those in America would know about this, the Old West, you want to be sure that when you hire a wagon master that the guy knows what the trail is like and how to keep you out of trouble. Now, getting the coach is the first most important thing. Consultant, mentor, whatever you want to call it. Have somebody there to hold your hand.
Do you think, Bob, that a lot of people don't want to do that because they don't want to admit that maybe they don't know enough, or it's kind of an embarrassing thing to... People usually don't like to ask for help. They want to do it on their own, forge their own trail.
Dave, excellent question, because That's how I was brought up. I was brought up by a Depression-era father who said, hey, if you're looking for a helping hand, check the end of your arm. So you were embarrassed, and I was embarrassed all of my life to ask anybody for help, which really holds you back. And there are a lot of people out there that can be of help. So that's the first thing. Get someone that can hold your hand and show you how to go on down a road, and because you're going to experience bumps. Second, you've got to be willing to face the fact that you're going to fail. Now, people talk about failure. I've got a different take on that. But you're going to fail more often than you'll ever succeed. And I'll explain that. Thomas Edison, they said, failed 1,000 times before he finally got the incandescent light bulb to work. Now, I do not consider those 1,000th attempts to be failures. I consider them all to have been successes, because had they not all been done, had he not attempted each one of those 1,000 and learned from them, and that's the key. That's the key, is learn from your supposed failures or your lack of getting the bulb to light. So facing the fact that you will stumble, you will fall on your face, but when you're on your face, remember, you're only a short push-up to your knees, and that's a good place to start praying. Dave?
It kind of reminds me of when I started the business. I had a cellular phone store and service center in Idaho, and when I had that business went into bankruptcy. There was some it was a franchise arrangement, and there were some things I couldn't control, and so as you try something, maybe it's a new marketing technique, maybe it's a new way to deal with your employees, maybe it's a new accounting procedure, and it didn't work, and you see the end result. What I tried to do is go back and say, okay, what could I have done differently? And like Thomas Alva Edison, he said, okay, this chemical or this tungsten carbide or whatever. Carl, are you still there? Didn't work. So that's what I learned in my experience. Okay, to go back and say, this, I tried it. This was the outcome. Wasn't the desired outcome. So what can I do next time to prevent that from happening? One of the most important lessons that I learned was, and I learned this the hard way, was who to partner with and who to bring on in business. And one of the things that they told me was to listen to that little voice inside your head. Human intuition, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. You get this gut level reaction about people, about whether or not you can trust them. This intuition. When I went into a business class, they said, listen to your little voice, listen to your intuition. And when I had issues that came up, especially with people that I would partner with in my business, and later they took over my business in a hostile takeover, I went back to look for the warning signs, and they were there, but I chose to ignore them. And so that was a lesson hard learned. They say that the best lessons are the hardest ones learned.
That's so true. That's so true. In fact, caller, I know you've hung up now, and you say, well, gosh, that's a long-winded answer, but there is no 1, 2, 3. And anybody wants to give you a 1, 2, 3 to success, that's not going to happen. That's not realistic. Dave, you got something in your head?
Oh, no, I was just...
Oh, okay, you're listening. Okay. So, and number 3, I'd like you to make yourself 3 circles, because at some point... Now, I'm going to keep it just to this. If you're not passionate about what you're going to do, it's probably not going to work. I don't care if it's part-time or full-time. If you're not really passionate, you don't love the product, you don't love the procedure, you don't love where you're working, you've got to love the people that you're working with. So if the atmosphere is not correct, it's probably not going to work. You need to really be convinced that what you're going to do is going to help other people. If you're just doing it for yourself, if you're just doing it for ego satisfaction, there are some people that do that and make billions of dollars, but in the end, there will be an equalizer. I'm not meaning to be preachy, but be passionate about what you're going to do, and then do it very well. And thank you, caller. That was a great call.
I think one of the things that I learned when I was in business is, and you've alluded to it and you've expounded on it quite a bit, find something that you're passionate about. Find something you love doing. So, for example, let's say you like growing things, maybe growing flowers, growing vegetables, and you have a choice. You have a job offer to pump gas, and you don't really want to do it, and you've been offered a management position. Let's kind of tip the scales up here a little bit, make the decision a little bit harder. Let's say you've been offered a management position job at a gas station that pays, pretty comfortable wage. But let's say you've also been offered a job hoeing the garden at a greenhouse. Let's say your passion is hoeing the garden, and you're faced with this dilemma of, do I go for the money of the job I really don't want to do, or do I kind of suck it up and do in the dirt and learn from the ground up in the greenhouse job? That's, and there's a lot of people I think out there right now that are faced with that dilemma. And sometimes short term you do have to do the job you don't want to do. But before you would take a management position job at a gas station where they're going to train you into management, thinking that you're going to be there long term, it's not fair for the employer for you to just go along for the ride and then a year and a half later say, well, you know what, I really want to be in the greenhouse business, so see you later. And as the employer, and I've been in this position, you're kind of upset because you've invested a tremendous amount of time and money and energy into training this person to maybe take over your business, and then all of a sudden they say, well, I didn't really want to do this.
So true. So true. So anyway, it's especially important, and if anybody is thinking about a full-time business, starting a business that's from the ground up, or if you've got a business right now that you wish you could take to the next level and you don't know exactly why, what's happening, that you're stuck, give us a call. I know I was working with a man who had a master's degree, been in business for maybe 15, 20 years. And he decided to hire me as a coach. One of the first questions I asked was, of course, what's your goal? And when you're talking about business, it's generally just in money. And he said, well, I'd like to go to, well, let's say, and this isn't, I'm not going to give exact examples, but let's say I want to go to $500,000 a year net. I said, okay. Well, the second question then is, may I see your agenda for today? Well, sure. I said, you have one, right? Well, he did. Normally, most people will turn me or ask me to look at their Outlook schedule for the day, or they'll have a list. And this gentleman had a little tablet with the dates on it, and I looked at it and I said, okay, what have we got for today? He says, well, pay one bill and interview Bob Schuster. Well, he made one good decision. Anyway, I said, well, that's not really fair. How about if we go back a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months, and take a look at things and see what your agenda? And he said, well, sure, go right ahead. So I did. And it was pretty much the same. Have lunch with Dave, pick up some flowers for my wife, make a stop at the gas station, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, your goal is $500,000 and you're making $250 now, correct? And he says, yeah. I said, then where on your agenda is there anything that says, how do I get from where I'm at to where I want to be? And there was nothing. other than the fact that he decided to hire me, and that was
That was a good idea.
that was a good idea.
So people need to take baby steps, and it's kind of like walking up a flight of stairs, isn't it? One step on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. I think oftentimes we hear in the United States, we want everything right now.
Oh yeah.
We want our 500. Next week I want to make $500,000 a month, and we're looking for a shortcut. You know, we're just kind of, do I dare say it, lazy?
Oh yeah.
And I was talking to a interesting thing.
Yeah.
I'll get to that here in just a minute, but it's a stair step, and one little accomplishment built on top of another. So let's say down the road you want to be an investment banker, but you never do anything to move along that goal. Let's say maybe you just need to take some accounting classes or basic finance classes. Maybe you need to learn how to balance your checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't know how to do that, you want to be an investment banker, you need to start building on the foundation and then building on top of that. What I was thinking about as I was telling that story was I was talking to a businessman here in Bend, small retail business, franchise owner, and he said something that really surprised me. He said, you know, we're looking for people to hire for jobs, part-time. And I said, well, there's a lot of people unemployed out there. I would think that there would be a plethora, just a lot of people that would want to apply for this job. And he said, yeah, but they really don't want to work. And even though there's a lot of unemployed people out there, we are having a hard time finding good workers, and we want good workers because it's too much hassle and expense and time and energy to just blow through the ones that don't really want a job. And some of the people are just coming in, applying for a job and not wanting to be hired because they want to stay on unemployment. So that really surprised me, where he said, yeah, our business is picking up and we want part-time workers, but even with the high unemployment, we're having a hard time getting good help. And that really surprised me.
It's not surprising to me. It should be.
Well, you're older than me. You have 72 years of experience.
Touche. That is so characteristic. Getting from where you are to where you want to be. We here in America are so used to having it now. That's what got us into trouble in the bubble, in the real estate bubble. Oh boy, there's free money. I know, I've been there. Have you ever lost a house? Yeah, I've lost a house. So, did the bubble hurt me? You bet it did. Did the stock market bubble hurt me? Yes, it did hurt me, because we are so used to having everything we want right now. We can go in the store and we can have what we want. As children, our parents may have taken 40 years, 50 years to have a nice house. We get out of college at 21, 22. We want that house right now. We want the Beamer. We want. And life is not that way. It takes time.
Yes, and we need to be realistic in what we want and what we can get today. As a news reporter, I interviewed a young man who was begging on the street corner with a sign out, you know, unemployed, please help me. We've seen a lot of them here in Central Oregon. And people were giving him money, and I went up and interviewed him, and I wanted to know the backstory. I wanted to know, what's your story? How did you wind up here begging on the street corner? Well, he was in the construction industry, and there was no construction work here in Central Oregon. The housing bubble burst, and a lot of people in the construction industry are unemployed. A lot of people have left the area, but this person stayed, and I said, well, why don't you go someplace where they're building? Well, we like living here. Oh, so you like living here and begging on the street corner, and you enjoy doing that? Well, they don't enjoy begging, but we just like living here in Central Oregon, and so we'll just stand here and beg on the street corner. We need to be realistic in what's available. If there's no jobs in Central Oregon, just use that as an example, then it's in your field. Let's say you're a construction worker. you might need to go somewhere else. I've heard they're building spec houses still up in Wenatchee. I think that's what I heard. That's Don't quote me on that, but that's what I kind of heard through the grapevine. So sometimes we need to be realistic with our immediate needs. And well, I like the mountains. I like skiing. I like hiking in the woods. And so since I don't have a job, I'll just beg on the street corner and let everybody else feed me.
So
I digress. Excuse me.
no, you didn't digress. You hit a point that, and Dave did not intend to mean that everybody on the street corner just wants to live here in Bend, but that is a good example of how so many people in this country feel that. I ran into a gentleman, for example, whose wife was from New Zealand. It may have been Australia. It could have been, I don't know, London. Wherever. She wasn't from here in the United States, but she had never been here. And was disappointed when she got here and found out that the streets weren't paved with gold, that everybody in America wasn't rich. And that's the truth. So when you're thinking about building a business, you're thinking about moving your life to the next level, remember, you've got to plan it well. We'll talk more about that. And in fact, I'm going to mention something right now. On May 18th, we're going to start a Promise Made in-depth educational series that will run for 12 weeks. And we'll meet once a week for about an hour and a half. And we will cover all the subjects, and this is primarily going to be for those who are in business or thinking about starting a business. We're going to give it the hard, cold, step-by-step 1, 2, 3, but it isn't going to happen overnight. You get those, and so do I, every day on your email. It says, wouldn't you like to be a millionaire tomorrow?
Stuff envelopes in your home and make a fortune.
Yes, yeah.
Have you seen those?
Yeah. Sit in your underwear at the kitchen table and make $50,000 a month.
Send your money.
Yes. So on May 18th, that will be our first session, and we will be talking more about that as we go on. But
I do want to thank you for mentioning that, and I do want to reiterate that I am not insinuating that everybody down the street corner is lazy or is begging for money because they simply don't want to live in Bend. But what I am using I want to use that as an example of in this case, and I'm not going to use a person's name. You need to be realistic on what's available and what you need to do. And I've talked to a lot of people that have really fallen on hard times, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm casting aspersions on people that are out there just trying to make it.
no, I know you're not, because you've been through a lot of trials the same as I have, and in past recessions, I maybe knew one or two people, or maybe it was me that was being affected by the economy. Now I don't know anybody that isn't being affected. So please don't be embarrassed next Wednesday to call in. Ask whatever question you want to ask, because we've been there.
Now, can people call in and ask specific questions about specific instances in a business and give those to you, and maybe they have an investment idea, or should I do this with my business? Should I do this kind of advertising? Should I spend this kind of money, invest in this kind of portfolio? Is that the kind of question we're looking for?
No.
Okay, what are we looking for?
I should have expanded on that.
Okay.
I am not an investment counselor. I can teach and will teach you the steps that are necessary to build a business. When you need investment advice, there are investment counselors, advisors. That's their expertise. I'm an expert at the 1, 2, 3 that is very important way before you need to worry about investing your money. Need to teach you what you need to prepare, as it's in Proverbs, 27 or 24:27. It says, "Prepare your outside work, prepare your fields, then build your house." And most people just want to go to building the house. Okay, I got $100,000. I know, I've been there, I did it. I wrote a guy for $250,000 because he had a master's degree, and I knew nothing about the stock market. And he said, "Well, no problem. We're going to make you all kinds of money." Well, I should have followed my wife's advice. She didn't feel good about the guy. Like you were saying, Dave, if you've got a gut feeling that maybe this isn't the right person to be using or to be involved with, listen to your guts, because it's probably the good Lord, the Holy Spirit, or just good common sense saying, "Whoa."
I have my biggest decisions or my biggest mistakes in life that I have made. Thinking back, there was that intuition, there was that gut feeling saying, just this uneasiness, this queasiness, this is not a good idea. But for whatever reason, whatever the motivation was at the time, and I won't go into all the details, I don't want to embarrass anybody, including myself, but in some of the major mistakes I've made in my life, I didn't listen to my little voice, Holy Spirit, intuition, whatever you want to call it, and listen to that voice, because if I had of, I'd have a lot more money today, I'll tell you that.
Yes. Well, that's so true. And Dave asked a very good question. Am I the guy? No, I am not. I am not a CPA. But there are so many things that you need to know. I never failed. I never fell on my face because I didn't know accounting. I have fallen on my face because I didn't have good goals set. I didn't know how to achieve them. I didn't have timelines. I didn't have a good strategy. I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. Teaching you how to go about looking at and setting up a business and keeping it profitable and moving it to the next level, and that includes your personal life.
Do you find that a lot of the information, advice you're going to give them for business can cross over to the personal life?
No question about it. It's generally the same thing. People don't normally, if I was to ask 10 couples, how many of the 10 sat down and planned their family goals so that the husband knew what the wife really wanted and the wife knew what the husband really wanted, and they were going down the same track, heading toward the same place? Now, they may get together and agree on, well, let's go to some particular lake for a camping outing this weekend or next month, but ask them, I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 will not know where they're going as a family.
And they need to be in unison. If they're not, they don't have to agree on everything, but about the major direction of where they're going, they need to be in agreement.
Where do you see us 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And this starts, oh gosh, I've got so many things on my mind, it's going to take me years. But it starts very early in our life. We don't think about where we're going. Nobody really sits down with. There's no class in high school that teaches about goals. And at that age, it's generally hormones that are directing you. I know I was 18, 21 at one time, a long time ago. But if you even thought about it for a second, if anybody asked you to think about it, override your hormones with your brain. And Susie Cheerleader, wants to live up on the top of the hill in a big fancy house and drive a BMW, and a kid's going to Harvard with a husband that's making $1 million a year, and she falls in love with a quarterback who loves restoring cars, and he's going to open up a garage and work as a mechanic. Think about it. Think about it. One of you have to give up your dream, or get realistic, or sit down at your coffee shop and say, oh, wait a minute. Now that my hormones are calmed down, let's talk about what do you really want out of life. But we don't do that, I know.
That's a great example. I know it's something that happens in our adolescent years, and for most of us it's way behind us, but it's a great example of making decisions today that have really bad consequences in the future. Maybe today this guy is the star quarterback and he wants to, but 20 years from now he's going to own a garage, and Susie Cream Cheese wants to be, living the high life in Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, and she's in, some small town in the Midwest with a sagebrush rolling through, and says, I made a mistake. Well, back at the high school homecoming, when they were on the float and they were the homecoming king and queen, well, that was then. But you have to make decisions that will impact your future.
And you can take that, I don't care, Dave's example, my going back, doesn't make any difference if you were 18 or 20 at the time, or if you're 40 or 50 at this time, or if you're 60 or 70. The same thing holds true. Sit down, think about your life, and Dave's question was, are the answers for building a good, solid business that's pretty crossover into personal life? You bet. 95% of the time. And that's where we're going to go. But it's going to be an in-depth. There won't be any questions being asked, oh, where's the beef? You'll be getting the beef. And so we'll probably wrap it up here for tonight, and look forward to talking with you again next Wednesday.
Okay. And just check our website. We're going to have an email address for Bob. And so during the week, if you have questions for Bob, you can email them to us, and we will make sure Bob gets them. Now, as the sessions go on, I would think that Bob would, if you want to bring real-life situations and real-life circumstances and questions, either in your business or personal life, on basic building block issues about how you can improve the situation. Maybe you have a specific business example. Should I do this or should I do that? I think you'll be surprised and enlightened by the information that Bob can bring by saying, well, I've been there and I made that decision and this is what happened. So you can benefit from Bob's mistakes. Mm-hmm. You can benefit from his mistakes so you don't have to.
Very true. And you'll find out about the successes.
Yeah, not everything was bad.
No. Oh no, life. God has blessed me, and I'm having more fun now at 72 than I've ever had, and I know that I'm doing what God wants me to do, and that was the promise made, to have a life in more abundance, and that's what my life is now. A whole lot more abundance, and we don't talk just about finances. So, David?
And one of the things before we leave, if you have a few minutes, one of the things that I hear when I talk to people on the street is, and people listen to the news, and there's just so much fear out there, and there's so much negativity. There's so much, everything's down and depressing, and boy, you pick up the newspaper, you watch the TV show, you go to the internet, look at the news, and there is a lot to be depressed about. But think back into the depression and think back into when things were bad back then. A lot of the Fortune 500 companies that are existing today were birthed out of that. And maybe somebody, Hewlett-Packard is a great example. Mm-hmm. Hewlett-Packard, I don't have the information right in front of me. Two guys in a garage in, I can't remember the city, but in fact the garage is a national landmark now. They developed Hewlett-Packard, HP, from the garage, and just they had this dream. They knew what they were doing, and they built and they built and they built and they built the company. And probably a third of the computers we have in this building are HP computers and compact computers. And these were two guys in a garage.
Mm-hmm.
So don't despise small beginnings.
Oh no, there will be more millionaires made during this depression, recession, whatever you want to call it. There'll be more millionaires made during this time than ever any other period in history. The opportunities are there. They are there, and they are abundant. And the reason that most of them, and I'm going to give a little philosophy here.
Okay, go ahead.
The reason that there is so much opportunity right now is because most people are stuck, they're panicked, they've got their head in the sand. You hear them talk about wait until things get better, I'm going to go back and do what I was doing. Hey, things are what they are right now. They're not, there is no competition out there right now.
Because everybody's got their head in the sand and hiding under the rock because they're afraid to venture out.
Totally.
And so for the people that have a little chutzpah or guts and are willing to take a chance, those are the people that are going to make it big. Now that's not saying you do things foolish.
No.
But that's saying that you don't be afraid to take a risk.
Well, that's where I come in, is so that you're not doing things that are foolish, but giving you, as the lady who called in, and I recommended her first step was to get someone that had the experience, a good consultant or counselor or mentor, a coach. That's where I come in, help you set the pillars so that you're, same as in the Bible when Luke said, hey, isn't it only wise that you plan before you take the journey, that you plan your foundation? And he was talking to people that were thinking about giving up everything and following Jesus, and they had no idea what they were doing. And they said, well, can I think about this? Well, yeah, don't you think you ought to think about it? You ought to plan your foundation. Build your foundation strong, and if it's built strong, then the rest goes from there. And that's what I talk about a lot, is foundation.
You think time management is also critical?
Oh, paramount. And that's one of my probably 3 hours that I'll spend just on the Alfredo Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule, which involves totally time management. You take a look at your agenda in the morning, and that's where most people get messed up. They have tasks. Now, moms that stay at home, or even if they're working, women are really great at this because they've got a lot of tasks. They've also got a lot of responsibilities going to work, or building a business, and that's the business side. But we're used to, the list. And the guy says, boy, I was really busy. I'm really busy today. But you didn't prioritize. Give you from Peter Drucker, a management guru. This is what Peter said. What can I and only I do that, if done well, will make a real difference? What can I and only I do, if done well, make a real difference? And that's what you should be looking at on your agenda in the morning. Only those things that will attribute to 80% of the production of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.
Another thing that we want to talk about, and we'll get in more in depth in this later, is that people really sell themselves short, don't they?
Oh, totally. Yeah. They've got a whole lot more ability than they ever knew. I know that I always did.
So don't sell yourself short.
Not at all.
That gets back to the core principle of a promise made.
Yeah.
And the promise, without being too preachy, a promise was made by Jesus of life and life more abundant. Irregardless of whether or not you're religious or believe in Jesus, obviously there's going to be some listeners that are listening that aren't so inclined, but you have some potential. You have great potential.
Oh, yeah.
And you just need to find out what you're passionate about. And we're looking forward to being with you every Wednesday night here at 7. Then May 18th at what time?
May 18th, that is also a Wednesday.
Right.
And this broadcast, rather than coming from this
studio,
will be coming live streamed from our classroom. So anyone that is in the Central Oregon area that can attend is welcome to attend it in person. Those that can attend in person, you'll see it live streamed.
And you can call in your questions as well. And if you have real life examples of what should I do here or there, and without mentioning names or getting specific, but you want some guidance, we're here to help you. Bob is here to help you.
Totally.
Okay.
God bless. Thank you, Dave, for helping out this evening. Thank you for the caller. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
And check our website. We will have a website or an email address for Bob Schuster tonight. So check that later this evening or tomorrow, and you can send your questions or comments. This is the first broadcast. There were a few minor technical glitches involved, so we apologize for that. But thanks for hanging in there with us, and we're looking forward to helping you improve your life, because we really, really, really care about you, and we want you to be all that you can be.
I like that.
Be all that you can be.
Be all that you can be.
Because a promise was made.
Totally.
For Bob Schuster, I'm Dave Adams, and you are listening to a TriCast, and this is a webcast, video webcast on the Jesus Network, and also Operation Eagle's Wings. The Eagle honoring all veterans and leaving no one behind. Bob, any closing thoughts?
No, but I like to leave nobody behind, because being an old Marine, I like that.
We're excited about that Veterans Outreach, and for veterans listening right now, we just want to say thank you very much for the service for your country. The Eagle is, as we get our technical feet under us and get going with some stuff, we're going to have more news and information of interest to veterans. So thanks for listening, and be blessed. Have a great evening.
God bless. Take care.